My name is Miranda Stallings. I'm a 4th grade teacher at Meeting Street Academy, Spartanburg, and this is my first year teaching. I found Meeting Street Academy by chance. It was a complete opportunity, and I took advantage of that. And then I chose the school because after I came for my interview and I met some of the staff members here, I just completely fell in love with it. I love the location, I love the area surrounding the school, and just the school in general. First semester of school, what I used to really drive my results was to reach out to surrounding teachers that have been here for years, some teachers that have only been here for 2 years, just reaching out to as many people as possible in order to receive support so that I can become better and better myself. My leadership and my operations teams, they help me a lot by providing me with materials and a beautiful classroom to be in, and then my support staff here has helped me by providing me with any information that I may need on how to track data, how to elevate my classroom, how to build such a close-knit community just in our classroom, and then expand that to the rest of the school. Outside of work, in order to recoup and revamp myself so that I can pour into my students the best way possible, I have to take that time to be alone and pour into myself. So I like to do things like be out in nature, and I love spending time with my cat, which is really fun. And I've also taken an interest in coloring. So I know it's something small, but that's just something that helps me mentally take a break, even as just a teacher.
Good morning. My name is Miranda Stallings. I'm a 4th grade teacher at Meeting Street, Spartanburg. I would feel confident in admitting that your first year in teaching is both nerve-wracking and exciting at the same time. I began prepping for my first year in education when I was in the 11th grade of high school. I'm still out of breath. This involved collecting things like supplies, crafts, manipulatives, and even small, plastic holiday-themed goodie bags, which are in my classroom today. I'm so out of shape, y'all. When I found out that I was receiving a job at Meeting Street Spartanburg, I thought I was prepared to just jump in and start teaching. And then professional development came, along with lots of talk about data and classroom management. And then I realized I probably wasn't as fully prepared as I thought. It wasn't until those first few days of being with my students that I realized how essential it was for me to have soaked in as much knowledge as I had. During the first few days of teaching, I was most excited to create genuine relationships with my students. I wanted them to instantly notice my authenticity, my respect and compassion for others, while also introducing high expectations. I want to take you back in time with me for a few moments to college. I had a wonderful professor, Professor Joseph, who taught me about classroom management. He stressed how as teachers it's essential that we remain kind but firm, build excitement, and set up an inviting, culture-rich environment. I took what I had learned from PD at MSA and Professor Joseph's words of wisdom and implemented that immediately in my classroom. This was amazing for not only my students, but also their families. At the beginning of the year, I had a student who was constantly testing my patience. I'm sure a lot of you can relate. And as a new teacher, he was probably questioning if I was even going to be able to hold on to these expectations that I had set, okay? And he also probably questioned my authenticity as a first-year teacher. Who wouldn't, right? I began giving out homework every night, and oftentimes he'd come to class with incomplete work. Knowing that I had to start somewhere, each morning I made it a point to greet him specifically by his name and get to know him through side conversations where I learned everything about his weekend plans, his home life, to even his favorite foods. By doing these simple things, I was able to create a meaningful relationship with him and his family. I learned that 10-year-old who wasn't completing his homework actually took care of 3 younger siblings between the age of 2 years old and 5 every day after school. That's far more than any 10-year-old should be responsible for doing. This information allowed me to see past his low productivity, and it opened a door for opportunity. I learned so much from and about him by holding on to those high expectations. And before I knew it, this student no longer tested my patience. He knew that I was holding on to my expectations, and my authenticity was revealed to him. I genuinely cared about him outside of the school and not just who he was in my classroom. To this day, I'm constantly trying to build positive relationships with my students and find ways to share these glows with their families. As I reflect on my professional growth from the beginning of the year until now, I also see my students' growth. Not only in their academics, but also in their excitement for learning, their authenticity, compassion, and respect for others. This includes my challenging student from the beginning of the year, who's also now completing his homework. The next step in leveling up my students was implementing all that was shared with me about data. Before coming to MSA, I had truthfully never been introduced to this type of differentiation, and honestly, I loved it. I was able to review daily data and work alongside my grade level team, coaches, academic interventionists, and set up the best plan for success moving forward. I've learned that being a first-year teacher is truly all about trial and error. So I take the things that I learned at PD, and I try my best to implement them. If it worked, I'd keep it. If not, I had to let it go, okay? Trial and error. In the end, it's all about my students' well-being and their academic success. The first few months of teaching were the most challenging because this was new to me and I just hadn't found my groove yet. There would be some weekends where I would spend 12 to 14 hours, and I kid you not, lesson planning. A couple months later, I would reach out to lots of other wonderful teachers at my school to find new ways to become more efficient in my lesson planning and how to just take a break as the teacher sometimes. That helped tremendously, and now I can get my lesson planning done in about an hour or so, okay? I needed that time to take that break in order to pour into my students. The last thing that I wanted to share with you today is my secret ingredient for teaching. This year, I've learned to accept that not everything is going to go the way that you planned, and I think we all can say that as teachers. I learned that it's okay to make mistakes as long as you're striving to learn from them. I learned that it's also okay to not know everything, but strive to. That it's acceptable to always, always be your true and authentic self. Your students are going to notice it, and they're going to apply it to their own lives. Show respect, gratitude, and compassion to everyone, and soon your students are going to do it too. It's important that we be excited about new days, new opportunities, and new challenges. As I continue to grow professionally and personally, I can't help but wish the same for my students. In the words of the late Maya Angelou, I did then what I knew how to do, and now that I know better, I do better. Thank you.
That's a rookie teacher!